You're listening to The Broken Meeple Show, a podcast that speaks passionately about board games for the benefit of those who play them. My name's Luke Hector, best known for the Broken Meeple YouTube channel, and I'm an everyday gamer just like you. And I'll be talking about reviews, top 10s, and just about anything that connects me to board games, as long as I have a tea or coffee in hand, that is. So grab a cup, relax, and enjoy. And remember, it's only a game. Hi everyone, Luke Hector here for our podcast. What's it, 110 now? Yeah, it's still going, and it's a little bit dark, I can see on the camera there. Maybe I'll put some lights on later, but to be honest, you only need to see part of me, so I suppose it's not the end of the world. And as quickly as I decided it was not the end of the world, I decided it was the end of the world and put a light on. So, okay, maybe it's a little bit brighter. But yeah, this is another podcast episode, a relatively small discussion topic later, a couple of games to talk about, and one update regarding conventions. But yeah, generally, things not too bad. Work could be better, but I mean, it could be worse either. I think it's just plodding along as, as it can do. Health-wise, not too bad. I was actually quite pleased with yesterday, where I finally did a 10k run. Normally, I go to the gym and do 5k runs if I'm going to do cardio, and so I do 5k in about 26, 28 minutes, somewhere around that bandwidth, which is a fairly good pace. But, a couple of people I know, like Mark Datey, for example, Not Board Gaming, does a massive thing with running. He's older than me. He's supposedly not, I didn't think he was in better shape than me, but he's doing 10k runs when he goes out for, jogs and stuff. And it's just like, well, I can't be overshadowed by that on a continuous basis. So at some point, I do need to actually try and run 10k, even if it's on a treadmill. And I did it yesterday. And yeah, it's different. I mean, you have to slow your pace down a bit. I do 5k in 26 to 28 minutes. You can't therefore do 10k in 52 minutes because you would not be able to keep up that pace for that long. So, I had to obviously go at a slower pace, and I think I did it in about an hour, 7 minutes, something seconds or whatever. But yeah, less than an hour and 8 minutes, which is not bad for your first go. But my thighs and my ankles are definitely not forgiving me today for it. Yes, the ankles are a bit on the sore side, so I might not do any running for a couple of days. The thighs are certainly in the typical DOMS stage, but yeah, I was certainly knackered. I mean, burnt over 1,000 calories doing it, which is pretty sweet, but it justified my meal for the rest of the day. But yeah, I was kind of happy I just did it. I didn't sort of necessarily think, well, can I run 10k? Because I do enough fitness, I do enough cardio, but I've never tried to run 10k before. So yeah, doing it, pretty cool. So I might do a few more of those from time to time, but albeit with even more warm-up stretches and even more preparation beforehand, because it requires not just a physical discipline, but also a mental discipline, because I like to get stuff done quick and get it on with the next thing. I'm not someone who I don't have a lot of patience. So, doing something in 26 to 28 minutes is kind of like, yeah, barely needed 30 minutes, a few minutes of warm-ups and stuff, and then 26 to 28 minutes of that, I'm at the gym and back in 35, 40 minutes or something, so great. But knowing that I've got to commit an hour and 10 minutes practically just to the run itself, on top of warm-ups and the rest period afterwards, it's like, oh yeah, I'm actually spending a good 90 minutes doing this training session instead of 35. It's a bit more of a mental thing, especially when you're running, because obviously I've got to listen to music for an hour and 10 minutes. I need an hour and 10 minutes worth of good running music. I can't just listen to any old music, while I'm doing it. So it's a bit more of a discipline, but glad I did it, so not too bad there. Otherwise, not a huge amount to say on, the health front, shall we say. Blog-wise, 25,489 subs, it's steadily going up, but not quite as fast as, could be. But, there's been some good content, I think. I mean, the top 10, the top 50 obviously ended before the last podcast, but we've had some big reviews since then in sort of big-name games. We had Galactic Cruise, the big, massive Euro, which is almost a bit like a Lacerda, 6,000 views, not doing too bad. Cool, blimey, sorry for that. My phone was on loud. How dare it? So yeah, Galactic Cruise, big review there. So by all means, check that one out. That is the longest review I've ever done. I don't think I've ever done one that's longer than 45 minutes. It was a mammoth game. I mean, I've got to talk about its pros, cons, its overview, the solo mode in detail. I mean, it needed a lot to talk about. Then we got Kraftwagen, the speed review for that, 1,600 views. Would be nice to be more, but I mean, I don't think Kraftwagen is a very popular game. I mean, it's got some fans, but it's just not that well known. I don't think Arcane Wonders have really broadcasted it much, so it's barely heard of, and, as my review shows, it's got some issues. Then Heat Tunnel Visions, the newest expansion to Heat. I give a review, and yeah, for the most part, variety, it's fine, but there are some worrying trends that this publisher seems to be doing with these expansions, which I hope they don't keep repeating. So, by all means, check out my thoughts on there. But that one's doing very well, 3,600 views. I mean, that is a pretty solid view, and 100% likes. Nobody's disliked the video. Not even the trolls have come by to dislike that video. So it's, most of the time videos will fall into the 95 to 98 bracket, which is the case that most people like the video, and then you get a few trolls or a few people who don't like my verdict downvoting it. But to get something 100% where not even the trolls want to visit is actually pretty good going. And then finally, I've done another top 10 list. Yeah, finally, I'm back to a normal top 10 list. And there will be more, because there's not a lot of games to review at the moment. I mean, we're in the first half of the year where nothing gets released, at least nothing really of note. So there will be more top 10 lists coming in the next few months. And so we started off with one that I wanted to do for a while, the top 10 Euro games for 4 players. Most of the time I always say that a Euro game should be played with 3 players, because that is the universal sweet spot. There are some, though, where 4 players is more suited. So this is where I talk about 10 in particular. 4004, kind of would like that to get a few more views, because normally I assume that top 10 lists will get more views than some of the reviews, but that doesn't seem to be the case with this one. Maybe it's a slow burn, or maybe it's just not that popular a topic. I mean, there are, people are crying at me to do another solo games list. I mean, I just feel like it would be a repeat of the last list. I don't know how much it would really change. And not to mention, there's so many solo modes out there. It's a nightmare to try and remember how each one works. But there are a few that I could do with updating. I mean, one of my most popular lists ever is the top 10 tiny games. That was done ages ago, about what is probably the single most popular video I've got on my channel. So it might be a good idea to do another one of those, for updated games. Trying to think of other ones. Well, I mean, I've had some top 10 list ideas from, Patreon people. Well, Patrons have suggested it, but I haven't done an official thread to say, please can people suggest, something for top 10 lists. So I should probably get on and do that at some point. Though I'm wondering if I can quickly find out which ones got suggested at first. So, yeah, that's normal. Those are podcast ideas. I know somebody has suggested a bunch of top 10s. Top 10 tips for conventions, top 10 filler games, top 10 card games, top 10 games with dice, top 10 favorite mechanisms, top 10 favorite board game artists. I mean, top 10 card games doesn't make any sense anymore, because there's so many card games, and what do you determine as a card game now? Top 10 games with dice, maybe. Top 10 favorite mechanisms. I think I've already done something like that on a podcast at some point. Top 10 tips for conventions. Every time I do a convention video, I always do tips for it, usually for Essen and that. So I can't really do a top 10 for that. Top 10 favorite board game artists. I mean, maybe that might not be a bad one to do, but I don't know how popular that would be for me to just talk about artists. Yeah, so that's a little bit maybe that's one for the. Maybe that's one for a podcast someday, to talk about my favorite artists, because then I can bring it up on the screen and show it and search for it. I'm not sure how well it will work on a top 10 list, but I don't know, we'll see. Let me know your thoughts. Would top 10 artists be something you would watch or be interested in? Interesting to find out. The trap I do worry about, though, is if I look at a game, think, oh, that's nice art, and then find out it's AI without realizing it. Most AI art is usually easy to tell, or not as good as real art. But yeah, I worry that I might go, oh yeah, I like the art in this game, and then somebody later on tells me, you do know that's AI, don't you? And it's like, oh, whoops, so that's what I'm a little paranoid about. But yeah, so yeah, not too bad with the channel. Is there any videos upcoming? Only one is in editing room at the moment, which is the Divinus review. So that big Lucky Duck Games legacy game. Finally finished it. I have many things to say about it, and most of them are not good. So yeah, look forward to a little bit of a ranty video on that. It's not really a major review. It's also not really a speed review. It's kind of in the middle, because obviously I can't talk about many spoilers. It's just a review. I can't be bothered to categorize it as speed. I think it's too long for a speed review and not in the format of a normal review. So it's like, it's a review, whatever. So that one is on the way. You'll get that at some point this week. Hopefully, if I could do some editing on it today, hopefully Tuesday or Wednesday I should be able to get that to you. I would say at the latest Wednesday. I think that's a guaranteed you'll get it by Wednesday. Mm. A bit of coffee. I might need to actually pause the podcast to get another drink at some point, but we'll see. Right, now I need to talk about something pretty important at this stage because I keep forgetting to talk about this on all the other podcasts I've been doing for the last month. So it's about time I talk about it now. The UK Games Expo. This is a convention that I have been going to every year for probably the last decade. Like, I have been going since it was just at the Hilton Hotel next to, the NEC Centre. So this is before we actually went into the NEC Centre. It's now been in several different halls in the NEC Centre, and this year it's meant to be in some different halls of the NEC Centre because of people having booked like the other halls and stuff. And I normally go to this every year. I'm not so sure about this one. I mean, I missed 1 year because of my brother's wedding, which, to be fair, that's a pretty good excuse, okay? My elder brother's wedding. I think I'll miss a convention for that. But the thing is, I don't know if I want to go this year. I've got the press pass and all that stuff, but I just don't know if I want to go. And there's a few reasons that have been kind of on my mind, and this is on the mind of a lot of people. This is not just my opinion. The Games Expo is starting to price itself out of the running as being worth to go, because I spend a fair bit of money to go to Essen each year, but that takes up a good Tuesday through to Monday of my time. So that's a good amount of time I'm spending in Germany or on the road or at a convention. It's 4 days, not 3 or 2.5 or whatever. It's also got a lot of social activity with loads of people coming in from overseas that I don't get to see very often, more so than the Expo. It's got all the newest hot releases. It's got thousands and thousands of games. I know you said millions, but yeah, thousands and thousands of games at Essen. There is so many things at Essen that are worth me spending the money to go there. It's like a little mini holiday, even though I'm knackered by the time I get back and sometimes have COVID. But the thing is with the Expo is that it doesn't really measure up in that respect, but it's getting to the point where it costs as much to go to that as it does to Essen, because it's ridiculous now. The hotels for ages have been getting it. Like, I've realized that loads of people come for this event. So now the hotels are pricing them at the same level that I would expect to pay for a 5-star spa resort where I get massages every day, can go in a thermal suite every day. You know, I expect to be pampered like crazy in a hotel that costs as much as these guys are. And these are for what? Like, not even a Premier Inn standard at best. You know, like Ibis hotels and, Ibis Styles and Holiday Inn Express and stuff. And these people are trying to price over £100 per night for these places. And even when they get into the 80s, 90s, I mean, that is ridiculous for the low grade quality hotels that they are. And I normally like to travel cheap when I go to these conventions. I don't feel the need to be in a most expensive hotel. Would I like to be in that really fancy hotel that's right next to the Essen halls when I go to Essen? Yes. Do I want to spend nigh on £200 a night to stay there? Hell the friggin' hell no. It's like, so I stay somewhere relatively cheap, 20 minutes outside of Essen, and drive in each day. I get to stay there a fraction of the cost for the sake of a small drive in the morning. Whoopie-doo. And at least it's a quieter sleep. Trust me, don't stay in the Premier Inn next door to the train station in Essen. Oh, God. But the thing is that at the Games Expo, to stay anywhere cheap, and I mean even remotely cheap, I've got to stay a good 25-30 minutes away from Birmingham. Not just the NEC Centre, from Birmingham, in order to get there. Some people get lucky by staying in Coventry and getting the train in, but I kind of need my car boot because I bring games to play in the open gaming section. But you have to carry your games a long way to get there. Even with the bus service back and forth, you still got to walk a fair distance with a big bag of games to play there. And because the UK Games Expo library is utter crap, it really is one of the worst board game libraries I've seen for open gaming. It doesn't allow me to be flexible and just say, oh, well, I won't bring a bunch of games. So you might say, well, why don't you just play the games that you buy there? Well, I don't get that many games at the Games Expo because there's not a lot of new releases. The Games Expo barely brings you any new releases. You might get demos of stuff. Like last time I got a demo of Lufia and SETI and Black Forest. And Black Forest was only because, with the help of Paul Grogan, I was able to actually get into a prototype game of it, so that wasn't even an official demo. So, a few demos of new games I might get, but then why don't I just wait for the game to come out at Essen and then try it there? Why do I need the initial demo miles ahead of time? It's like I'm going to get the game later anyway. But, so you might think, well, what about the social activity? You get to see people. Yes, there's the one thing I would miss if I didn't go to the expo. I don't get to see people. But the thing is, anybody from the UK that goes to the Games Expo, I will typically see at GridCon, HandyCon, Shake, Battle and Roll, Essen even, and various other conventions. So it's not like I'm devoid of contact. And most of my international contacts that I know will go to Essen rather than the Games Expo. Or they go to both. In which case, I see them at some other stage. It's just, the Games Expo just costs too much. You've got to spend a fortune to stay there. You've got to spend money to park there, unless you want to be really dodgy and try to see if you can get in and out without parking. But trust me, it's a risky business. So you've got to spend a fortune to park there. You've got to spend a fortune to stay anywhere remotely close to it. The food there costs an absolute fortune because it's all inflated prices. And at the end of the day, I spend about half a day, 3/4 of a day max in the trade halls, because by the time I've walked around it once, I've seen everything. I'm not that interested in Kickstarter indie games, so I'm not interested in the merchandise stuff. I mean, I know a couple of contacts who sell t-shirts and stuff. I get on well with them, but yeah, I'm not desperately interested in merchandise. And there's not enough new releases, and I don't tend to want to go around the retail stores there, like Games Law and Zatu and all that lot, to buy games, because if I was doing that, I'd have bought it online already. Why do I need to go to a convention and pay an inflated price for it? It doesn't make any sense. So why am I going to the expo? And that's the problem I'm having. This is the conundrum. I don't know why I'm going to it. There's pros to it. Yes, I like to meet people while I'm there. I like to shake hands with people who watch the channel if they recognize me there. It's a good way to meet some publishers again. But then I also do that at Essen, and I contact them by email, and it's just, you're spending several £100s to go there, comparable to Essen, and I just don't know if it's worth it. I haven't booked accommodation for it yet. I might have reserved. Actually, I'm not even sure I've reserved accommodation. I've got the ticket, and that's it. I haven't even looked at accommodation. I dread to think how much it would cost me to get accommodation there. But if I go to it, I'm going to have to make sacrifices. Like, there's no way I would stay in Coventry and train across and still carry games that I need to play in open gaming, because I would just break my shoulders doing that. And it is horrible doing that. But the other thing is that you don't really get much extra access for a press pass at the expo. You don't get to go into the halls early as a thing, or if you get to stand in a separate little area as press. So you might be front of the line when you walk in at 9 o'clock, but you don't get to go into it early unless you're an exhibitor. So okay, so why don't I do some teaching while I'm there? You know what? That would be one thing that could swing it. If a decent publisher wanted to, put me up in accommodation and I taught games, I would actually be down for that, because at the end of the day, I don't spend that long in the trade hall either. I would still get to socialize with people and rake in the atmosphere, and I get to teach games, which I enjoy doing anyway. So there is that, but I haven't really seen anybody advertising for it. It's probably a bit late now, end of March, to jump into somebody doing that, and I'm going to be very picky about which games I want to teach. I'm only going to want to teach games that I actually think are worth teaching. I'm not going to teach any old schnick. It's like, oh yeah, I could teach brass. Yeah, hell no, I'm not doing teaching brass. So that's not going to happen. But some publishers who I would love to teach games for have their own teams. I'd love to teach for Czech Game Editions, for example, but Czech Game Editions tend to have their own team of people that they use, some great, some not, gotta be said, and they don't necessarily need more people. But man, I would love to be at a convention teaching Lost Ruins of Arnak or SETI or most of their games, and I would have a blast doing that. So it's kind of like that. It's just a little bit hard to decide, and I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of people on the GridCon Slack channel, and for people's deciding, you know what, I don't feel like going, and even I'm just like, I don't know. I mean, the bring and buy, hate the bring and buy. The bring and buy is such a messy experience at the Games Expo, and it's prone to theft, prone to damage. It's not worth it. I don't care about the awards and stuff like that. I don't really go to any of the seminars. So competitions, whatever. Your board game library absolutely sucks, particularly the one in the Hilton is not too bad, but it's still not great. The one in the expo halls, though, is garbage. But the thing is that it's so hard to get table space, particularly on the Saturday, that it becomes impossible to do any open gaming anyway. um, so yeah, I'm there for like a little bit of a trade show, seeing people, and a tiny bit of open gaming. Is that worth like a lot of time? I mean, I've got to go there on the Thursday to go for the press event, which means taking 2 days off work for this event, Thursday and the Friday. The press event is decent, but again, you're just finding out about stuff just so you can chat about it afterwards. That's about it. And then 2.5 days, and I don't know. I just don't know. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? Is it worth me going to the Games Expo? Do you think it is? And even then, would I be able to find accommodation anywhere? Are there any exhibitors that you know that are looking for people to teach their games? Because then I might look into it, but can you put me up for accommodation, while doing it? Because, you don't need to pay me, but putting me up in accommodation is effectively the same thing and probably more useful, honestly. And have you, or are you just a person who's gone to the Games Expo before and now are thinking it's not really worth it, or now I only go for a day, or now it's too pricey, too much hassle? There's just a lot of things about it. I'm like, I don't know. So yeah, let me know your thoughts. At the moment, I haven't planned anything for the expo yet. Not to say that I won't go, definitely. But I just keep procrastinating, trying to look at accommodation and stuff, and I just don't know. I just don't know. Is it worth it anymore? And they brought it on themselves. They're in a location that's not the easiest to deal with, not the cheapest to deal with, and also the hotels nearby have just completely butchered the cost of going there. It used to be expensive even when it was just in a Hilton, but at least it was bearable. Now it's ridiculous. Loads of hotels are in close proximity, and they think they have the right to charge £200 to £250 per night for a place to stay. But the problem is they know that they can do that because they know that idiots will buy them at that price. Come on. Strive for cheaper accommodation, guys. So yeah, we'll see. It deflates me knowing that I might not want to go to the expo anymore. So I'm certainly going to Essen. Essen's already got accommodation reserved, and I've reserved it, and I know what I'll do for it. I know which transport I'll use. I'll get around to booking the Eurotunnel at some point because I'll no doubt drive there, I'm sure. So yeah, that's a given. But Essen just offers me so much more. I mean, even last time when I went to Essen, I got there on a Tuesday and decided, I'm going to go to Duisburg Zoo for the day. Not the best zoo ever, but it was going to a zoo and having a nice time. I got to do something as well as go to the convention. What the hell do you do around the Birmingham NEC Centre that's worth anything? Hell, what the hell do you do around Birmingham itself that's worth doing? It's not my favourite city in the world, and not just because I remember getting mugged in it. But yeah, so I don't know. We shall see. Anyway, moving on. So, I just want a quickie update about Biome. Biome was a game that I talked about briefly, saying, I'm intrigued by this. It's kind of like a mix between Earth and Wingspan. You play animal cards in the tableau, and there's restrictions on where you can put them and stuff like that, resource generation. I've now sat and played some games of this. And I would like to say I think my excitement for the game has diminished a little bit since those times. I don't think the game is bad, but some chinks in the armor have shown themselves. Do I think it's cute, this gimmick of having little nests on the cards to have babies and getting victory points for stuff like that? I mean, that is cute as buttons, and I like that. That's nice. Do I like the card tableau play system in general? Yeah, the fact you can only trigger one effect on the card once, and you have to worry about spatial awareness, and there's all this different nice artwork, and that's all well and good. But the game does have a few big problems. Firstly, this track here, where you get bonuses for going past certain stop. It's basically a rich get richer mechanic, because if you're the first person to get there, you're the first person to get the bonus. Now, you will eventually go past these bonuses, but again, getting there first means you get the bonus first. There's no catch-up mechanism apart from the person at the back can get one extra resource a turn. Whoopie-doo. I mean, I think they need more than that in order to catch back up. The objective cards, they're not particularly varied. They're also really hard to achieve. I mean, they require you to build cards in such weird patterns or weird, diversity regimes. And the problem is that there is a severe luck of the draw element in this game, more so than anything like Wingspan. Because Wingspan, you draw a few cards during a game and great, but here you go through cards at the same rate as Earth. You draw a lot of cards, and you could be hunting for specific types of animals and plants, or certain types of terrain or whatever, and they just do not turn up, and it really hurts, especially for the objectives, if you can't draw, say, the last reptile you need to get 12 points before someone else does. There is that. But even just like some of the effects you're after, what food costs they do, whether they can go in the terrain spot that you want. There's a lot of luck of the draw elements that are impacted on more because you draw so many of those cards. It does take a while to finish with 4 players, even though you have 3 rounds in the game and an endgame condition. At no point has anybody ever got to year 3. You end the game before year 3 even starts because of the amount of points you get. You've got expansions to throw in, but I don't know, the weather module just basically seems like it's a way to get hurt at random, which doesn't seem like a great idea in the first place. It just suffers from a few little things that I'm like, and some of the effects are purely luck based as well. I mean, you've got some that are like, if you have so many of this, do this. All right, great. Or draw this, but give something to other players and do that. That's all cool. Those effects are cool. And then you get ones that say flip a coin. On the heads, get this. Tails, you get this. Seriously? We're doing heads and tails coin flips in 2025 or 2024 or 23. Well, actually, when was this made? 2020. This was a 2024 game, wasn't it? Yeah, 2024, and we're doing coin flip effects. Seriously? Have you played any games, designers? But on top of that, you've also got like other sort of luck-based mechanics on some of these cards, and even just the predators and the babies thing. You roll a die for your predator to try and eat the babies of other people and claim victory points. It's the difficulty number is 1 plus 1 for every plant they've got in the same biome. Now, unless you have a biome full of plants, chances are your defense is really low, like a 1 or a 2. But you might roll for all of them and you just get nothing but 1s. Or 2s, and you just don't eat anything. You'll get cards for it. Whoopee-doo. I wanted the victory points, and I wanted to deny you the victory points, because it's the difference between me failing a roll and going, all right, I draw 2 or 3 cards. Okay, great. And the difference between me going, right, I've eaten 2 of your kids, I get 4 victory points, and that's 4 less victory points than you get. That is a swing of 8 points. That is quite a substantial difference to just drawing a couple of cards. And it's all luck. It's luck without enough mitigation, and that is the problem with this Biome game, is that I think it relies too much on some of those luck aspects to really set it apart. I mean, it's no way is it any good as Earth or Wingspan or any of these other tableau building games about nature and Meadow and stuff like that. This is definitely lower end on the scale. It's definitely a lot better than that Kavango game or whatever it was. That was pretty dire. What was it? Kavango. Was it called Kavango? Yeah, 24. Came out in the same year. Kavango. Trust me, I played that. This is much worse. Okay, this is like failing Designer Diary 101. But, it's got so much wrong with this. Even though it does have a couple of good things in it, it's like, yeah, the rest of this is pretty wrong. But Biome, yeah, it does suffer a bit from that. So I don't think it would actually be a game I would give a seal of endorsement to. I don't think it could easily... At first, I thought, this could be a 7 out of 10 potential. Now, we're definitely looking at a 6 out of 10. No, maybe 5 is a bit harsh. Average, I think it's above average. It's still got some good stuff to it, but yeah, those other aspects do hurt it, and Kavango was worse. I mean, Kavango was like 3 or 4 out of 10. It really wasn't that great. So yeah, could have been better, but at least I've tried it now, so those are my thoughts. Bit of coffee. Alright, let's talk about another game that I've played recently. So first impressions. Everybody is going mad about a game called Critter Kitchen. I'm seeing the usual high-value dice-star reviews for it. I'm seeing, other people sort of go, oh yeah, this is amazing. Mainly because Flamecraft was popular. At least that seems to be the main appeal for this, because this one was basically kickstarted after Flamecraft. It's from Cardboard Academy, the same people who did it. Loads of people love Flamecraft. I'm not entirely sure why. It's an okay game at best, but yes, it looks pretty, it's produced well, it's cheap for the value it is. I'll give it props for a few things. It's also quite luck driven, it's also too complicated for younger people. I mean, it's supposed to be, yeah, this is family friendly because look at all the cute dragons and everything else like that. Yeah, when you get to the second half of the game and you got a bunch of these dragons and shops keying off each other, it suddenly goes out of the region of being light gamer friendly type friend. It certainly gets a little bit fiddly and complicated for its own good. So, and there was definitely some balance issues with some of the dragons. You know, some dragons were definitely a lot better to use than others. So it had problems. So Critter Kitchen is what my friends have shown me recently. They backed it on Kickstarter, and so I thought, oh, I want to learn something new. I want to see whether this is overrated or not, so I wanted to jump in and give it a fair shout. So Critter Kitchen basically has you, well, run in the kitchen, and as you can see, this publisher has a thing with long boards, so you are going to need a bit of table space for this. You have screens, although honestly, I don't think the screens are that necessary because frankly, you don't have much. Well, actually, I actually think that the screens hinder the game, and I'll get on to why in a minute. But essentially, you have got a few workers, size 1, 2, and 3, in terms of how much they can collect. You've got these different locations, so like a soup truck, a diner, market, whatever, chef's academy, and you are cooking recipes over the course of 7 rounds. You've got a set of 3 in the first 3 rounds, then a set of 3 in the next 3 rounds, and then the final critic one where you try to do one of every ingredient. The recipes are flipped over each round, which is a bit of a problem because it means you can't really prep for stuff in the future because you just have to hope that the recipes gel with what you're doing. And you are trying to cook these recipes by using resources that you collect but in each round, and the higher value of the resource, the more points you can potentially get. But it's one of those ones where you get like 2 points for getting 12 plus star rating and then 3 points for getting 21 plus star rating, which means that if you hit 12, great, and then every number after that all the way to 21 is pointless unless you get the 21, which seems a bit weird. Why can't you have more point values in for the different star ratings? Why is there got to be such a huge gap? So that's one problem. But it's done by simultaneous selection. So basically you have the location cards, and next to your player board you have the different chefs themselves. So these guys, these little meeples, and I say, we'll get the obvious out of the way. This is produced really well, I think, for what it was priced on Kickstarter. I think the deluxe set is a really good value. The pieces that you get in it, the metal sort of star tokens for points, the custom meeples, the acrylic resource tokens are really good. So yeah, hands down, artwork and production looks fantastic. All right, and that is blatantly obvious. But I'm trying to find a close-up of let's try and find a close-up of a player board. That would be nice. Yes, I get it. The artwork is fantastic. We're not disputing the artwork. The insert could be better, but oh yeah, and all those meeples for the chefs, they're pretty sweet. Gotta like those. But let's get onto the board. All right, here we go. So you got your board, you put location cards above the board to say, right, I'm going to send my person to the soup truck, for example, like this picture here. And it is a simultaneous, hidden from other players. So the other players don't know where it is you're going. You then reveal them all at the same time, place your workers out, and then you resolve the locations in a specific order. And there's a kind of like a priority thing. So these little markers on this track here dictate who gets first pick if you send the same type of worker to the same location as someone else. And this chops and changes every time you resolve a fight. Then your marker goes to the back so that it makes it easier for other people. And the idea is that you use these locations to collect resources, and you place them on your little fridge here, and then when you're serving meals, you plate them up on the little plate. Choose the resources you want. The little spices double the value of other things, and basically you're just trying to create a high value meal based on what is required. This rinse and repeats for the first 3 rounds, the first 6 rounds, and then the 7th round is a critic one where you basically get the highest of every resource in the game and try to create the ultimate meal. So the game takes about an hour and a half, an hour to an hour and a half to play. It's not the longest game in the world, but it's also not the shortest. And it's definitely, I would say, a bit simpler than Flamecraft in terms of how you go about doing things, but that's not necessarily because the rules are less complex than Vanguard or that things get more fiddly. I mean, certainly things get a little bit fiddlier as you go through the game and get more stuff, but it's mainly because this game suffers from one big problem. You have basically very little control over what goes on in this game. I like simultaneous selection as much as the next person, but a lot of what happens in this game feels like it's random. And if it's too random, and yes, it's a light game, but it's not super, super light. It's also not as short as a filler game, where luck is fine. This is still a 60 to 90-minute game, so there is a limit on how much luck you want. And as much as it's cute and pleasant, and you can make references to that, and I suppose, well, first, I'll talk about these later, actually. Let's get on with what I'm trying to say. The randomness in this game is just too high, because you have no idea where the opponents are going to go on these locations. In some games with simultaneous selection and locations, you can have some idea to think, I reckon you're going to go to this place this turn, so I need to prepare for that. Right? I reckon you'll go to that one because you've got this, this, and this. You know, you can do that. The problem is, everything the opponents have is hidden from you behind a screen, which means you have no idea what anybody has and no idea where they're going to go. You know, unless you treat this as a memory game. Memory games, for the most part, suck. And light gamers do not want to have to concentrate on memory recall when they're playing a light game. And even then, there are so many resources, so many values and stuff like that, there is no way in hell you are going to be able to remember this stuff, okay? So you have nothing to go by with any other player. So what locations do you pick? Wherever you want to go. That's it. You just pick the locations you want to go to, because you've got no way to tell that somebody else will go to a specific location. You can't. I mean, you know, there's these chef cards that you pick up each round, and I'll get onto those in a minute. You know, they are quite cool, but one of them said, if you go to the same location as somebody with a level 2 worker, with this level 2 worker, you get to do stuff. How the hell do I know where you're going to send your level 2 worker? No chance. It's entirely random. It's fluke that I happen to have done it. So what is the point? And, you know, and this is a bit that mars the whole game, because now all these like battles where you like get in each other's way and you're like fighting each other for like being able to pick first on a location, it's entirely random as to when it happens. So, you know, this whole mechanic where you tussle back and forth to say, right, okay, what is it, this marker here, where in one particular battle, I call it battle, but in one tussle, you have priority, therefore you get to pick first. Entirely random, it turned out that way, but fine. I now go to the back of the queue because I won that one. But I really wanted to go first in a different location. But that means that by the time it gets to that location, I'm no longer at the front of the priority. But several locations might have had fights by the time I get there. So it might have gone all the way back round to me again, or it may be that I'm in last place at the time I want to. And it's like, well, I can't control that. It just happened to be that way. And if you don't get the resources you need, it can really screw up your ability to get points. Because if you can't get the ingredients on these meals, you have to use soup, which is basically a low value thing to take its place. And you will not be able to get the high star ratings that other people are doing. And so you will score less points. So it just feels like you get punched in the face at random. And that's not a good feeling. I like the chefs. You know, the chefs are cool. You have these unique meeples that, one of them comes out each round. If you go to the chef's academy, you can recruit them, and they have special abilities. That's pretty cool. And I did mention I thought they were quite a good. I'm trying to find I can't find the meeples, but you get all these different chefs and all these different meeples. The problem is you only get one of them in a round, and you may not get it. So you don't get to experience these cool chef meeples that often, because there's only one each round. So there's only 7 in the game, which is not enough. Here's that star rating I mentioned here. So yeah, 6 star, 12 star, 21 star. It's literally 1, 2, or 4 points. And this is wait a minute, 4 points. Did they score enough for me in that last game? I'm not sure. But the thing is, 1, 2, or 4. Now maybe it's 1, 2, or 3. I can't remember. But maybe this is an old version. But that's a lot of point differential for not being able to get to the 21. And as I say, 12 plus 21. So anything between 7 and 11 is pointless. Anything between 13 and 20 is pointless. You reach the bracket, or there's no point putting the ingredients into the mix. It's, that doesn't feel fun either. The recipes, they come out, and you only know what they're going to be on the round that they come out. So I might happen to have a surplus of meat and bread in my stack. Great. If only the next meal that came out wanted meat or bread. Did it? Yay, in which case I'm lucky. Did it not? Oh, well, I got a bunch of resources that go to waste, and you can only store so many after each bracket of 3 rounds, so there's that problem. Again, random. It, it's got a lot of this problem, and I know it's a light game, but I still want... Most light games that have some element of luck still give you some element of control, or some ability to kind of, goad other players or manipulate the board and stuff. But no, it's not. It just, you go to a location, you hope you get something, and it may or may not go your way. That is what every turn of the game feels like, which is not fun. It's not fun to do that. Now, you get these little expansions that you throw in, and they call them the car expansions, and you can tell that this was a stretch goal gimmick, because they started off at, I think, only 6 of them, and now there's like 20-something of them, and blatantly there was a whole stretch goal thing of, oh yeah, we'll put more things in. The problem is, when you do that, you run out of ideas, and blimey did they run out of ideas with some of these car expansions. I mean, we use the flowers, the newspapers, and the double sous chef, right? The double sous chef, which basically brings out a second sous chef every round, on top of the one you normally get, is mandatory. That should not be an expansion. That is a mandatory thing in the game, because having only 1 around isn't interesting enough. Having 2 around is a lot better, because you actually get more chances to use these cool meeples. So you need to use that expansion, because that should have been in the base game. But the newspapers... You take a newspaper, and for every 2 newspapers, you can flip them over, and you get to look at an endgame scoring card. And that is one other thing I kind of like. You've got endgame scoring cards that are hidden from view, and during the game, you'll be able to look at some of them and know what you're going to get points for in the critic phase and stuff. So that's decent. Our Consortium has a similar deal, so I quite like that. But then the other one was flowers. And flowers, if you go to that place, you get a flower token, and you get a point at the end of the 3 rounds or something. Or end of 3 rounds, 6 rounds or whatever, you get a point if you have the most flowers. That's it. In a game where you're scoring somewhere close to 40 points, you're getting 1 every now and again if you have the most flowers. Whoop-de-friggin' do. And then I looked through a bunch of the other card expansions as to what they had. So there was these cool little pie dial things, like a pie with a number in it. And I thought, okay, cool, what do you use that for? Basically, when you go to a location, you'll get a certain amount of pies, and at the end of the game, most gets 3 points, second most gets 2, and gets 1. That's it. Wow. That is a glorified track. That is literally the same as leveling up on the track, and you get points at the end. Boring. What a disappointment. And then there's a bunch of others that are just really lame forms of set collection or track leveling, and they're just glossied up to look pretty. And it's like, well, that's not interesting. I don't care about these expansions. I want expansions that impact the game in some cool way, not just arbitrary score a couple of points, and they're not even worth grabbing a lot of the times. The flowers aren't worth it. Screw the flowers, they're such a pointless thing. But the second sous chef makes a big impact on the enjoyment of the game, hence you must use that every single time. I will refuse to play this game if you don't use that expansion, because then I'm stuck with 1 chef in 7 rounds, and I might never get to use a specialist chef in any part of the game. It's just, I digress. But, and as you can see, I'm not the biggest fan of this game, and so when I'm seeing people give this 8, 9 out of 10s, I'm seeing like, Seal of Exorcism and stuff like that, I think that they just got blown over by the prettiness of this game. And yes, the game is beautiful, and it is so gorgeous, and it is well produced, and pretty good value for the deluxe versions. I'm not gonna skimp on that at all, that is deserved. But as a game, there are better games for this length, there's better games for this sort of mechanic. And I don't like the fact that you just don't have any real sense of control. And I think the screens hurt it. Because when you have the screens hide what's in your fridge. So you don't know what resources other people have got. What if you took the screens out and you could see what other people had? Like, I can see that you have got no wine on your fridge. And 2 of the recipes need wine. Which means you're likely to go to the soup kitchen to get soup. Or if wine turns up in any of the stocks, you're likely to go there. Or if they don't, the random one where you just get 5 at random and you hope for the best, you'll probably go there. Okay, so I reckon you're going to send people there. Well, if I'm going to send people there, where do I do? And that instantly gives you much more thought process for what the other people do on their turn. But because everything's blind, yes, that makes it a bit easier for lighter players because they don't have to think about too much. But what that does, it means that you just don't think. You know, it's like, I don't care what the other players are doing. It might as well be a solitaire game. Yes, you get in each other's faces, but I don't get to control or think about whether I'm going to be in somebody's face because you have no clue. There's nothing to guide you into that. So the interaction is forced upon you rather than actually done by the players. It's kind of weird to explain, but yeah, it just doesn't work. I don't know. I was really hoping this game would like impress me a lot more because I mean I had problems with Flamecraft and I wanted this to be right. Have you learned from the mistakes in Flamecraft? Now here's Critter Kitchen. This is going to be the one that's awesome, and it's on par with Flamecraft. Honestly, I'd probably say it's a little better than Flamecraft. I mean, I prefer this one. I don't know, do I? Because you get more control in Flamecraft. Yeah, it gets a bit fiddly and a bit all over the shop later on when you've got so many of these shops and dragons doing, but at least I've got some choices. This one, I just don't feel I've got choices. I mean, if I lost, I came last in this particular game. Not by that many points, but I came last, right? But I got no way to say, oh, next game I'll play this way and do better. Well, no, because there were times where, you know, we clashed in certain locations and I was unlucky enough to be at the back, therefore I didn't get what I needed. My mate would then be able to say, oh yeah, I was lucky enough to be at this location by myself, so now I get everything. It's like, well, it's not like you could have guessed we were going to do that. And then you've got these player powers. These player powers are fundamentally unbalanced. They give you 1 to 3 points, just generally. Why? And then they give you a special ability. But they range greatly in their power levels. I had a 1-star character that said I can use any spice as allspice, which basically means that all the wilds are wilds. You don't get that many wilds in the game. And you're certainly not going, and you can only use them if you combine them with other things. You still need to get the base ingredients first, otherwise the spice is useless, right? That was a 1-star character, and that was all it did. The opponent, who won, had a 2-star character that said every time you can make all 3 meals in the phase, so you do this, twice over the game, and also get one of every resource in the critic one. Every time you do that, you get 2 points. So this 2-point character easily, and it's not difficult to make all 3 meals. It really isn't that hard. Manages to get another 6 points from the game for doing next to diddly squat, and I get 1. And what does my character allspice allow me to do? It might allow me to go from a 12 plus category to a 21 plus category once, maybe twice in the game. And I have to work for that. Balance, seriously, and this is again, stretch goals. I mean, it's the same with the sous chefs. There's a lot of sous chefs. There used to be only 6, now there's 24. That is cool, but all of them are certainly more powerful than others. It's just got, this game has a lot of problems that make me go, why is this getting such love? And I think reviewers are being far too forgiving. I think they're just liking the fact that it looks pretty. I think that they're blown away by its production quality or something, or they're just willing to overlook fundamental flaws that this game has. And I'm sorry, but I'm not backing down on this. I don't think, subsequent games are not going to make me play any differently, and it's just going to feel like a random fest. Maybe there'll be a combination of those cart expansions that's like, all right, this is the perfect way to play Critter Kitchen, but you only get to use 3 of them, and I've already told you 1 of them, so I gotta find 2 others. And then that's it. Out of 20-something different little expansion modules, I'm going to find 3 and say that's all you play with. So there's 17 that go to waste. This game's got a lot of problems. I don't know. I mean, this is first impressions. I've only played it the once, but trust me, you get to learn a lot about this game even after 1 play. I'd have to play it some more to finalize my thoughts, but at the moment, this is barely a 5 out of 10. This is an average game for me, 6 tops, but a lot of that is down to its production quality and the rules being fairly simple and, it looking good, but its gameplay mechanics just don't feel fun. I felt like it was rinse repeat every round without much sense of control, and it just felt a bit boring. So I'm glad I got to try it, but seriously, what's going on? Wow, okay, we were already up to 49 minutes, and I haven't even got to the discussion topic yet. So, thankfully, the discussion topic's not going to be a long one. Swig a bit of coffee, but yeah, cool, blimey, I went on a bit on that one. So, yeah, oh well, fair enough. Right. So this is a very basic one. I just basically want to talk a little bit about blinging up your game. So I believe James has on Patreon suggested this one. It's not going to be a long topic, sorry, but there's only so much to talk about. And basically, this is like, how do I bling up my games, and what add-ons do I recommend having? So you've got inserts, you've got metal coins, you've got all these different things that you can do. Now, I'm definitely a lot more picky as to what I upgrade a game with. I mean, the first thing is that you should only upgrade games that you're playing a lot. If you're playing a game a lot and it's one of your favorite games, upgrade it. Stuff in my top 10 of all time, that gets upgrades. Okay, that sort of thing. Something that I haven't played in ages, I mean, something like automobiles that I haven't played in years. If there's an upgrade for it, I don't really care, because I haven't played it enough to warrant the upgrade. There's definitely limits on that. Now, Bling can come in all sorts of shapes and forms. So you could be talking blinged up components, blinged up insert. But I also consider it to be things like reference aids and printouts and stuff like that you get off Board Game Geek, because that stuff comes in handy. So one of the main things that I do love to do is let's start simple, reference aids. You can go onto Board Game Geek and get people's cool like cheat sheets for games, and they do come in very handy. So if I look up a New Dawn, for example, so this is the Civilization A New Dawn that I've been having fun with. So you go to the files section on Board Game Geek, and this is, as I say, I don't care about the ranking system on Board Game Geek. It's garbage. It doesn't make any sense. But you go to the files section, you can find some interesting stuff here. So you get like, the one sheets, a one sheet based on rule summaries, unified rules. This is really handy. Civilization A New Dawn had an expansion, which is damn near essential, but they stupidly put it in separate expansion books, and the expansion rewrites some of the base game rules. So you have to constantly flip between two books. Somebody's printed a unified rule sheet there. Well, that's pretty useful, definitely worth having. But then I also, I hate the fact that I got to print it as an A4 booklet and stuff. I would have liked an official rule book, but, you got to take what you can get. But, having something like cheat sheets is pretty sweet. So, I mean, if I just go to this one here, for example, I can go and have a two-page rule summary. Now, some are better than others. Some people use graphics, and some people just do a wall of text. Like, this is just a wall of text on two sheets. It's a useful aid, but it is not much of a looker. And honestly, I would like a little bit more, a little bit more of a interesting looking thing. Now, all right, Civ New Dawn, one sheet. So let's have a look at this one. Is this one? Which is the one that I used? I'm trying to find the one that I used. All right, that's just a. Okay, that's not too bad. I mean, that's got some, it's basically just a wall of text, but at least it looks a little prettier and stuff. I'm trying to find the ones that maybe they were on the Terra Incognita expansion one. Let's go to expansions. Go to Terra Incognita, which is mandatory for this game. So let's go to the files section for there. Here we go. It's an Action Andy, it was called. So here we go. So this is a complete compact rules. For again, now I've printed this, obviously it doesn't have sample written on it, but this is a very good thing. And I have a laminator, bought a new one recently because the other one clogged, but cheap laminators you can buy for cheap. You can buy them for less than 20 quid, buy some pouches, and providing that you're not a moron with it, they shouldn't clog up. Although, to be fair, the one that did clog up was not my fault, that was its fault. It was a cheap one, and it had been used for a long time. I think it just had its moment. And it didn't have an unjam button. Yeah, it was that cheap. So, I've got a better one now. But this one, this is a very good cheat sheet. Because it's got the setup, it's got all the different focus card rules, it has all those little niche rules that are in the rulebook that you tend to forget, particularly with this game. It does have a few of those rules. So everything that a player needs to know is on this sheet. All the different objective cards, how all the districts work, the terrain difficulties, every bit of information you need is on this sheet. Print this out 4 times, give it to the other players. Fantastic. You have something the equivalent of a Lacerda little book of rules that you need to know. This is one of the main things I love to bling my games with, because by God does it make teaching these games a lot better. And even just for your own personal rules reminder, like I might put this game down and not play it for a few months. When I come back to it, I need to be able to read stuff like this to go, oh yeah, that's how it worked. That's how that worked. Yeah, it jogs my memory. These things are invaluable, and it may not be bling per se by the definition of the word bling, but my God, these are some of the most useful things I can shove into my games. And, I'll give a little shout out to somebody who's very good at this sort of thing, although it would be nice if there was more of a selection. But give the guy credit, he's pretty much doing it himself. The Esoteric Order of Gamers. This is something that I've used. So he does a few other articles and stuff like that as well, and some YouTube content. But I am more interested in these, where basically he's done his own cheat sheets for a bunch of games. Now, granted, there's a bunch of cheat sheets here for games that I don't know why in the love of God you made cheat sheets for them. I mean, did anybody ask for Doctor Who Time of the Daleks to need a cheat sheet rule sheet? Has anybody asked for the Last Kingdom board game? Anybody asked for AT-43, whatever that is, or Assassinorium Execution Force? There's a lot of random titles here that I've never even heard of. But occasionally, just occasionally, he prints a rule sheet for a game that really needs it and is really popular. So, let me try and find an example of one that I've done recently. I mean, there's Dune Imperium on here, which is useful for a lot of people. Mansions of Madness, the Arkham Horror LG games, Battle of Five Armies. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that's like, why would you? But I will eventually, here we go, yeah, New Angeles. So not the most common game in the world, but there's a rule summary, okay? So this is in my copy of New Angeles, over there. And here we go, rule summary. Now there's like cheat sheets for each player and a full rule summary laid out in a nice fashion for the rest of the game. Really handy stuff. And in fact, on my table below me right now, I am trying to learn the original Civilization game. So the 2010 version by Fantasy Flight. Now, I don't think Esoteric Order did that one. I think somebody else did. But again, that sort of stuff is really handy to have. What's another one that's good around here? I think it was, did this one do Sniper Elite? I think he did Sniper Elite. Where is it? Come on, Sniper. Here we go. Sniper Elite, the board game. So, very good movement deduction one, and, very solid game. And Elite rules and reference. Another one he did that's very useful. I can't recommend it enough, actually, for people who have got the game. This War of Mine. Now, I know that they're going to do a second edition of this game, and I'm very excited to see what they do in that second edition of the game. But, yeah, if you're struggling with the rules for this War of Mine, here you go. So you got, the main rules. You've got a cheat sheet for each player. You only really need one. You play the solo. How to save the game on a cheat sheet. So, and the expansion rules. So you've got all this comprehensive information on a much easier to read platform. So this sort of stuff I really go mad for when it comes to blinging up my games. And I can't recommend this enough if you've got a little bit of computer savviness and know where to find such things. And Board Game Geek and Order of Gamers, I don't know if there's another website for anybody who does similar things. If there is another thing like the Esoteric Order of Gamers who does these sort of rule sheets, then by all means let me know, because I'd be interested to check it out. But that's a cool thing. So what else? Inserts. Well, I do love an insert. Now, inserts are very picky for what games now. So I need to enjoy the game enough to warrant spending money on an insert. But also, it needs to be a game that needs an insert in the first place. I mean, I don't need an insert for goddamn Splendor, okay? I do have one for Splendor, but I think it was cheap on offer and I needed to bulk it up, so I grabbed it anyway. But yeah, I don't really need an insert for Splendor, for crying out loud, right? So, not that desperate. And there are other games that have come out with inserts that I'm like, seriously, did you really need an insert for it? It's not that hard to set the game up. But trust me, for games where you do need the insert, it's useful. But I mentioned Civilization that I'm playing here. I would love for an insert for Civilization to make that game a little bit easier to set up. But, what do I tend to buy? Well, I tend to buy mainly from two suppliers. So you've got inserts for Folded Space, which are typically my go-to insert provider. Yes, I'm human. Stupid internet security. So yeah, Folded Space, they do a lot of like phone core style inserts. So, it's relatively durable, but it's soft and slightly flexible. You have to glue them together, which is the one annoyance I have. But the main thing with Folded Space is that their designs are pretty good and they're cheap. That's the thing. I mean, they get expensive when you do big games, like Unfathomable is a thing. And SETI is not the smallest game in the world, but that's only €26. But then you can get some pretty cheap deals, and bear in mind this is on their website. Okay, you can probably get them from a local retail, maybe a little bit different, but let's just have a look at their standard ones. So they've done a lot. Seven Wonders Duel, Seven Wonders, Zaon's End, 3rd edition Arkham Horror, Agricola, Anachrony, Age of Innovation, Architects of the West Kingdom, Eminent Domain, Concordia, Dominion, Dune Imperium, Dune, Eclipse, Expansions of Eclipse, Food Chain Magnate, they got a big criteria at the moment. And I've got a lot of these inserts. I've got the Forbidden Stars one here. It's costly, but it's a big game. It needs it. I've got Frostpunk. I used to have Frostpunk with that giant ice box that they did in the Kickstarter. That was a mistake. But Frostpunk with the folded space insert, you can condense everything now into a couple of boxes and you're really good. It's a very nice insert. And yeah, they're not the cheapest thing in the world. I mean, certainly folded space inserts are a lot cheaper than other games, but you might look at some of these prices and go, oh my god, that's expensive. These are for big games that have a lot of stuff to store, okay? So that's fine. But then Gaia Project. Gaia Project's got a lot of stuff in there. I mean, you set up Gaia Project without an insert and it is an absolute nightmare. €22. Well, that's not bad for an insert that's going to save you a colossal bucket of time to set up a game. Now, folded space has the problem that you have to re-glue stuff every now and again because the stuff gets loose, and you have to spend time actually gluing it in the first place, which is like, oh god, I've bought 5 inserts, now I got to glue all these, and it hurts. You got to find something to watch in the background or something, and it takes time, and I'm not the biggest fan. But, they are cheap. Alternatively, I might go to eRaptor. An eRaptor certainly does get picked for when I'm willing to spend some extra money, because these ones are more expensive, but I'm willing to really splash out. And by splash out, I mean get the ones that are UV printed. Now, Folded Space do this as well. My copy of Earth has a UV printed folded space insert in there. Very nice looking. Occasionally they do them. But sometimes I have to go to eRaptor to get them. And boy, oh boy, does eRaptor do some nice UV inserts. I mean, I'm trying to think of the words. I have got this Ark Nova and Marine Worlds one. I did have a folded space insert that worked well, perfectly well, but Ark Nova is my favorite game of all time. Check out my top 50. And of course, I want to blane it up as much as possible, to an extent. I use poker chips from Brass for the money. I have Etsy kiosks and pavilions for this, and I have this insert. Look at how gorgeous that thing is. Oh my god, I am drooling. This is such a pretty insert to get out, and the good thing with eRaptor is that you just clip them together, and that's it. You don't have to glue a single thing. Do they always fit 100% easy with no problems? No, and particularly with this Ark Nova one, there is one particular tray that's a little bit off, but it works. It's just a bit like, thankfully it's not, you don't need it very much. But yeah, so it's not foolproof designs, but typically they are. But man, they do look nice, and yes, they are expensive compared to most of them, although, I mean, 26, I mean, regular price, 43.50. I think it's on sale. Oh, it's on sale at the moment, so yeah, these are, I mean, god, this is a pretty good sale, actually. 30% off these? I'm telling you, I mean, yeah, at €43 or whatever, it's probably quite expensive to get an Ark Nova insert, but seriously, €26? If you live near this eRaptor, and if you're in Poland and you don't get, I mean, that's the thing that kills it with this. Their delivery costs are off the friggin' chain, so you might want to get them from a local supplier. But if you don't get hit by the delivery charge as much where you live, and you get these on sale, that is a freaking bargain for some of these. Lost Ruins of Arnak, Food Chain Magnate, Terraforming Mars, stuff like that. But I've also got, I'll search for it. Search. I have the Hegemony one. So I splashed out for the license insert for this. So I've got this one with the nice artwork there, these little trays. Called Blimey, I had a system for Hegemony to set it up. Oh my god, is it so much easier to set up Hegemony with this insert? Yes, it is very useful. So inserts, I think, are worth it. They are a luxury buy for sure. And especially if you get something like the Raptor ones. They're not the cheapest thing in the world. They're the price of another game sometimes. But they're going to do a lot for you. If these are games that you play often and they have rigorous setup procedures, you can't do wrong by buying an insert for it, because it really will make your life better. And I've got a lot of inserts in a lot of my games. Now, some of them I probably shouldn't have bought because the game doesn't get played often enough. But, stuff like you can get folded space inserts, dirt cheap for things like LCGs. All of these boxes have got the folded space insert on them. And you might think, well, it's not much of an insert. It's just like bits for card dividers. Yeah, it's a freaking massive card game. It's kind of useful to have that. You have the, I mean, let's see if I get one off here. So let me get this one out. Oh god, here we go. There we go. So you won't be able to see this on the thing, but basically, yeah, it's got the compartments with foam core and that, and it's got dividers that I've printed off Board Game Geek from people that have done them, and now my cards are nicely organized so that I know where everything is and can easily get the stuff out. You know, that's the sort of thing that's useful to have in something that you play often, or that takes a long time to, you know, set up in that. So it's definitely worth having inserts. All right, cool. An hour and 4. Right, let's see what else to talk about. I mentioned things like metal coins, so we're going to lump this in with metal coins and replacement components. This I'm less keen on. I've done it for some games where I love them to bits. So I Arc Nova, I splashed out on Etsy to get a different coffee marker as well as some kiosks and pavilions. That was a luxury buy, and even then I'm not sure I desperately needed to do that really. But most of the time I'm not that fussed about components. I mean, components you tend to get deluxe versions on Kickstarters anyway, but they also tend to be too pricey on some of the Kickstarters. I mean, you go like, you know, oh yeah, I can get this like really nice uber deluxe version of a component. And it's just like, is it really worth the extra £40 you got to spend to do that? Earth's last Kickstarter with those ridiculous sized trees and stuff you get. I'm sorry, I'm not spending nigh on 50, 60 quid to buy these ridiculous components that I've got to store separately and they're just getting to get in the way. It's like, it's unnecessary. Most games will give you decent components. Now, cardboard tokens with wooden tokens and stuff like that, pretty good. Wild Gardens, directly behind me. There you go. That one there. That one, if you get those different food tokens that you get that are wooden ones, they are very nice. I actually do recommend those as a good upgrade, you know. So, and that's the thing, I mean, metal coins, I really don't care about metal coins. Some of my games have got metal coins because I found some cheap, you know, like they're not official for the game, but they look the part, so fine. There are some cheap metal coins I've managed to find. Metal coins, again, just tend to be quite expensive, and sometimes they're not. Garfield Games do metal coins for all their games on their Kickstarters, and they're pretty good price for the metal coins. So occasionally I will buy them, but other things made out of metal, like I mean, Kanban EV had a bunch of metal cars you could get for the set. I'm sorry, no. For the price you pay for those metal cars, they were ridiculous, and it's not like the proper screen printed Meeple cars were bad. They were great. And that's the thing. I mean, if you're going to upgrade a game, upgrade it from something that's crap to something that's really good. Don't upgrade something that's already good to something that's just a bit more good. It's not worth the money. And people don't respect wood enough. Wood pieces are great. You know, I don't care about miniatures in games now. I'm getting sick and tired of grey miniatures in all my games. I mean, I'm paying somebody to paint my Deep Rock Galactic set, and it's going to take an extra month to get that back, and that's going to look fantastic. But Deep Rock Galactic, again, it was in my top 10 of all time. It's a fantastic game. I'm willing to splash out to get it painted, but not for a lot of my games am I willing to splash out that kind of money. And, you know, it's a lot of stuff, and it's a problem with miniatures. But, you know, cardboard standees with artwork, they look fantastic. But obviously, wooden miniatures, you know, so I mentioned the sous chefs in Critter Kitchen just a minute ago. They look really cool. And they're just made out of wood with designs on them. And other games that I got, I say, Kanban EV, it's got the cars that are wooden with screen print stuff on them. Is it screen print or UV print? I don't know what the terminology is, but, you know, they've got the designs on them. They look fantastic, and wood is a good component. So why not just get those kind of things? Now, money... actually, funny enough, I wonder if I can find it somewhere. Hang on, bear with me 1 second. I'm still in the room. I'm still talking. Can't see it. Nope. I'm trying to think. No, I can't seem to find it, annoyingly. Must be downstairs. I mean, one thing you can see on my shelf, actually, come to think of it, is the Stonemaier treasure chests that I got ages ago. Really nice resin resources. I barely get them out, because A, I forget when I've got them, and B, they're not necessarily the most easiest thing to shove into most games, so that was probably a waste of money. But the other thing I was trying to find was actually I'll probably look for it on the interweb. So this is what Sinister Games did. Well, first up, you've got the brass poker chips. So let me look up brass poker chips. So these iron clays from you know, the brass game. This is about the only good thing to come out of the brass game. I do have a set of these. You don't need the 200 set. Don't get that as a waste of money. That is only useful if you play 18xx games. You get the normal 100 set, you will be more than done. I use these for Hegemony and Arc Nova all the time because the money you get in those two games is garbage. but I just carry this set along with me to the club, and we use clay chips, and it's fantastic. I don't need metal coins. Yes, you can get metal coins for hegemony, I think, but why bother when you've got these really cool chips? These substitute for a lot of them, and they're not the cheapest thing in the world, but believe me, you get a set of these, and you'll be using them a lot. But also, the one I wanted to look for, if you want something a bit cheaper, and I do have some of these, is Sinisterfish Games did. I don't know if you can buy them separately, but certainly every time they do a Kickstarter, they do this thing, a coin chest. Well, let's see. What is this? Select a region. Yeah, whatever. Can I buy these? Yeah, you can buy them. Probably a little bit more expensive than if you get them on the Kickstarter. I think if you wait for their next Kickstarter and then buy them, they're a lot cheaper. But because I remember getting mine for less than a tenner, and it says 20 here. But these are basically wooden counters, 1, 5, 2, 20, 100 or whatever, and they come in a little box, nice and simple, very small, perfect for their games that they use, like villagers and stuff, and it really is. I mean, it is really great for them. But it comes in the chest, and you get a lot of these coins in there, quite a lot, 150 coins. They will do as money for a lot of your games if you don't like the money that's in there. Yeah, they don't look fancy, but they're nice, quality wooden tokens. And lots of denominations. So grab yourself a box of these rather than get metal coins. They'd be a lot cheaper in that respect. But I do have a box of these, and occasionally they do get used. Not as much as the clay chips. I think the clay chips is better, but it's an alternative if you're on a bit of a budget. What other blingness can you get? I mean, I already mentioned about miniatures. I don't really care about miniatures, so that's the last thing I really want to bling a game up with. I'm starting to get a lot more picky on that. What other things would I bling a game up? I mean, storage containers you can grab. So if I use a couple of these for Civilization at the moment, but there's a couple of others. If you go to Hobbycraft or places like them, you'll be able to get these little tubs, and they come in different sizes, and I use them in some different games. These are like the smallest one I think you can get, and they might be like the equivalent of 70p to £1 per tub or something. But you can grab a bunch of these in different little colours and that, and they got little handles on the side, and you just take the lid off. You can put a small amount of components in there, but enough to put in something like, say, the coins for a game or the resource tokens for a game. And in Civilization, I think I use these for one for the coin tokens, but I think there's one for something else. There's another type of resource in the game that comes in quantity that I use it for. Maybe the culture tokens, actually. I think the culture tokens get used for these, and they stack, and you can fit a few of these in a game box. And again, this will help with your setup and takedown. But go to your local Hobbycraft or local craft store and see if you can find something like these. You might even be able to find some on Amazon as a last resort, but yeah, definitely check them out, especially Hobbycraft. That's for the UK. I don't know if it's European or US has got something similar, but yeah, look up these things. They're pretty useful as well. What else can you bling? Baggies aren't really a bling thing. I mean, I use a lot of baggies because I buy a lot of games, and therefore I get a load of baggies. I've got an entire basket for a Calyx full of nothing but baggies. I have so many of the goddamn things. They are certainly useful, but I'm not sure that's really bling in the game. That's just useful thing to get, because otherwise how else are you storing everything? It's you're going to need baggies, and most games come with them, so that doesn't really count as much. But I'm trying to think what else is there really to bling a game up with, or certainly one that I do. I mean, I've already mentioned I'm not the biggest fan of metal coins. I use different alternate coins, and poker chips I think are really great. Inserts I think are definitely worth it, but again, do it for the games that need them. Don't just buy an insert because you have the game. Little tubs are cool to have. Reference aids, as I mentioned on Board Game Geek, very useful. Definitely worth blinging your game up with that. The dividers I showed you in Marvel Champions, again, you get that sort of stuff on Board Game Geek. If you're willing to take the time to print them out, laminate them, cut them out and such, it's not, it's a time-consuming process, but you won't regret it. It really makes things easier to store. Is there anything else I can think of bling-wise for a game? The little containers you can see above my head, I mean, they're not really bling in the game. They're just something that's useful for playing said game. Dice towers, that's not really bling in the game. That's just an accessory. I'm trying to think of how you bling up a specific game, and I think I've kind of mentioned all the ones that I partake in. It's typically inserts, reference and player aids and rules, and occasionally monetary upgrades. But I really don't like doing miniature upgrades, And even on the monetary side of things, I've got a set of clay chips and those wooden coins. They do me rather than buying a bunch of metal coins, but there are exceptions to that rule. But I suppose the main thing to take from this before I wrap up is that Bling your games is good, but remember that you're paying a lot of money for it. Well, actually, I mentioned component upgrades, so Etsy and stuff like that. I did it for Ark Nova, and even then I don't know if I really desperately needed to, but most of the time I'm not the biggest fan of doing component upgrades because they just cost an absolute fortune. I mean, I've got those fantastic chips, what's it called? Bring the Token Outer Rim Star Wars, what is it called? Damn it, I'm not sure. Oh yeah, buy the same token. So they gave me a bunch of these tokens to show off on Instagram and stuff, and they are fantastic. I mean, these acrylic tokens are so cool, and for Star Wars Outer Rim, oh my god, it's such an upgrade. They are incredibly expensive though. I mean, this is like for a single lot. If I show off Star Wars Outer Rim, I've even got the ones for Lost Ruins of Arnak as well. So yeah, you can buy a Black Series of the core token set. It will still cost you a pretty big fortune to do it though, and then you've got all these other little sliders and stuff that are separate, and they look cool, and I've got Lost Ruins of Arnak in that as well, but yeah, they're not cheap, and I got mine for free because I was doing effectively an Instagram review of them. So you know, I might have not necessarily grabbed them, or at least been a little bit harder to grab them had I had to spend my own money on them. But yeah, most of the time I won't do component upgrades unless it's a sizable difference and I'm going to be using them often. And I do play Outer Rim a lot more often these days, so it kind of worked for that one. But, you know, some games on my shelf I don't play anywhere near often enough to care too much about the component upgrades. And that's what I'm trying to say. You know, blinging up your game is cool. I have a few suggestions there that you can do, but mainly I suggest that you do it for the games that matter. Your all-time favorites. Which ones are you playing like nearly every week? You know, which ones are always getting put to the table? Those are the ones you bling, because you're never going to get rid of those games. You're never going to get bored of them because you're playing them constantly and you love the game for whatever reason. So bling those ones up and stick to those. And then, like, you know, you take your top 10, find out your top 10 favorite games that you have in your collection and make those the ones you bling up. And then don't bling up any of the others. You know, at most you could probably go to some of your lesser favorite games but have really bad setups and get an insert or print some reference aids. I think those are good because they have elevated some of the games for me. I mean, New Angeles is a lot easier to play with those reference aids. The Civilization of New Dawn, so much easier to play when you've got those unified rule cheat sheets. And the insert for the game actually makes that one a lot there. The folded space insert for Civilization of New Dawn is a thing of genius. So how they came up with the design for that one. So there are exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, focus on the games you love. Bling those ones up. There's some ideas. If you got any other ideas or stuff that you do, by all means, shove them in the comments below. But that's it for me. I'm going to wrap up this episode. It's quite a lengthy one, probably because of that Critter Kitchen rant. But hey, somebody's got to speak their own mind about that game. And yeah, I'll see you on the next episode. So take care. I've got editing as well as a comedy night to go to later. So hopefully I'll get a laugh out of that. Although live comedy these days has suffered a lot because of all the political correctness nonsense. You know, comedians aren't allowed to joke about anything anymore because apparently they'll get offended. It's like crying out loud. You know, the golden age of comedians is sadly dying out, and you have to resort to parody, like panel shows, to get the best out of comedians. But live shows, I don't know, comedy just isn't as good as it used to be. But hopefully tonight will be a good laugh, so we shall see. Take care, I'll see you on the next episode of The Broken Meeple, and remember, as always, regardless of how you're going to bling your game up, it's still only a game, so watch your cash flow and choose wisely. Bye for now.